If you're also feeling the October fever or the Hacktoberfest fever and you want to jump into the open source train, but you're confused how to start or how to navigate a large code base or what are the tips that you need to take care to have a successful contribution, then you're lucky because in today's video we have none other than Majid from the Flutter community who is also a maintainer of the Flutter Plus plugins who is going to let you into his brain and see how he contributes to a new open source project. This is going to be a long video, so you can check out the chapters in the description below if you're interested in certain bits. But my recommendation would be to watch the entire video and be part of the whole conversation because I'm sure that you're going to learn a thing or two from here. And this is not just going to be a verbal discussion. Majid will actually show you a little demo where he literally lets you into his brain and shows you how he does it. So without wasting any more time, let's get started.
This is Pooja, everyone.
Hi Majid, it's so nice to have you on my channel. In fact, you are the first person that I'm collaborating with, so I'm a little nervous, but I'm really intrigued by the work that you're doing for, the open source, the communities. I know you have like a lot of talks this month. I guess our viewers would want to know more about you, what you're doing. So can you tell us a little about yourself?
Thank you very much for the warm welcome, Pooja. So yeah, my name is Majid. I'm a GD or Google Developer Expert for Flutter and very active in the community, one of the leaders of Flutter community, and as well as one of the core maintainer of Plus plugins, which is probably familiar to many of the developers because these packages are used by many of the Flutter developers around the world. And don't be nervous though. It's just a friendly discussion. I promise.
I hope my viewers are not disturbed by the sounds, but yeah, I'm guessing this is going to be a very interesting conversation. In fact, the reason why we're even here is because it's October and it's Hacktoberfest season, and a lot of the developers were curious about getting into open source journey. And when I had posted the last video on my channel, which was about the Hacktoberfest rules and how to contribute to the Flutter community plus plugins, as you had mentioned, a lot of them had mentioned that, hey, it's too new for me. I have no idea how to navigate around such a large code bases. Do you have any tips for it? And I thought you probably will be the best person to just answer these questions for the community and help them out. So that's what we are going to, have a discussion about how you usually tackle these kind of problems. How does that sound like to you?
Such a great, plan. I think this is amazing because as you said, many people are coming to contribution and they don't know how to start, where to start. I will try. I'm not probably the best, but I think I'll try. I'll do my best to share my experience when it comes to contribution from small code base to very large code base, let's say. So we will talk about that and we will share a lot of tips and tricks. Hopefully that can help your audiences and developers to contribute and leverage, let's say, this momentum of Hacktoberfest, and just to show their passion to the to open source.
Yes, absolutely. I'm so excited to even learn something from you because I even don't contribute to open source that regularly as probably you do. So I think I'm probably going to learn from here as well. I think the first question that usually even I have or people have is that where do you even start from? Do you start from the issues first, go through the issues first and then go into the code base? Or do you go into the code base and then look at the familiar issues? So how do you do that?
That's a very good question. I'm asked this question several times. Wait, I split the answer into two parts. So usually, you are working with some kind of open source library, right? And you're adding to a project. And sometimes you get an issue, you're debugging, and you figure out, oh, the problem is in this code, at the third-party library. And then you're trying to figure out how to fix it. You can fix it. You go ahead and contribute and fix it, right? That's a very typical, at least for me, a very typical way of contribution. Another way is when you decide, explicitly decide that, okay, I'm going to go to this code base, let's say Flutter code base, and I'm gonna just find an issue that just, maybe I can fix it, and then I'm go ahead and contribute for that. Usually these are two cases for me. Either I have something in my code base, something that I work every day, or something that I decide to go for that project and contribute to that explicitly. These are two different things. So the answer to this question is very depending on which way you are trying to contribute. So if it's, let's say, a library that you're using, so well, typically you already started contributing. If you're debugging and then you see the problems, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
perhaps you exactly know how to fix it. You may send a PR and fix that issue. We get to the
Mm.
like the how you can contribute later. That's something else later. We can talk about it. But that's it's coming to you like naturally.
That's probably also answers some of the people's question about, what kind of projects should they contribute to or how to choose their first
Exactly.
project. I think that's a very interesting point that you added, that, the ones that you're actually already using, I think you already know the problems with it.
Exactly.
And that kind of helps with trying to, maybe if you find a similar issue around it, I
Exactly.
think you can just dive in right away. So that's a very interesting point. Just wanted to mention that.
That's actually a great point, because then when you're working and you find an issue, there is even if no one has found this issue before, well, you found it, you can open an issue, you send a PR and say, hey, I fixed this issue for you. So,
Right.
and people, when search, they can also find the issue and they know that, oh, there was an issue. I had this issue. If I upgrade to latest version, then I can get the update, you know? So
Right.
another point that I mentioned is like explicitly you want to go and contribute. Let's say you have an extra time or it's Hacktoberfest, you decide to contribute to some project, right? So you want to go and contribute like right now to Plus plugins, for example. You decide on the project. So you open. What I usually do is I go through the issues. There are usually in
Mm.
each repository labels associated with different levels of contribution skill, or maybe some other tags that may resonate to you, right? So you may say, oh, for example, I go to Plus plugins, it says beginner or best for first time, contributors, or things like that. And then I'll go and check them out because I'm not familiar with this code base, right? So it's better to start from somewhere to get familiar with something. Maybe start big, like
Right.
in the very tiny things, the small things. And once that's fixed, I know better. Then next time I can go for a larger or bigger issue, let's say. So that's also
Yeah.
another way that I usually do.
That kind of answers another question where people would ask that, what kind of issues they should start with,
Mhm.
where you mentioned that, beginner friendly. Are there any other tags should they look for when they are looking for these issues as a first time open source developer?
Yes, well, we mentioned first time contributor or something like these labels, but you may not find them. Because not all maintainers have like enough time to just have this clear,
Right.
labeling and stuff like that. So one thing that you may find is that you can go through the issues, maybe from the latest one, and then you try to find out which one is a bug, which one is a feature. Usually that is clear
Mm.
in repositories, different repositories. So then start from the one that you think you can contribute to, and it's not, if you are the first time in that code base, I always suggest to go for the smallest issue that you think is
Mm.
small. You may start and you figure out, oh, it's not as small as I thought. It's a lot of changes, but
Right.
at
Yeah.
least you think this is something that you can do, right? Um, the reason is that you will figure out a lot about that project when you start from an issue, because you need to set up the project, you need to go through the contribution guide, you need to understand it, you need to set up your local machine, or maybe sometimes you need to have
Right.
extra
Yeah.
additional let's say setup, and at least you can set all of these on your machine and you can be prepared for other contributions, let's say.
Yes, that's something that, people also like ask that should I, start running the application first, or should I
Mhm.
just read the code base first, or should I, try out the test cases first? What do you dig into the code base first? Like, do you go into the UI screens? Do you just check out the tests, or do you like, look at the business logic as such? What is the first thing that you, or like, what is the order of things that you actually look at when
Mhm.
you're looking at the code base?
I mean, as a maintainer, as a contributor, usually you go and you immediately want to contribute. You may skip a lot of things here, but let me tell you something which probably all contributors, maintainers will appreciate. And
Okay.
that's if you want to start with a project to contribute, please read the contribution guide first.
Of
Because
course.
a lot of maintainers usually try to write as much as possible
Mm.
um, because they know that, or maybe they already faced some similar issues from other contributors when they contribute. So they try to write a guide or a wiki for you or for me to read and properly set up my project, properly create like a PR. You know,
Mm.
I personally sometimes it happens before I become like a maintainer of these giant, let's say, packages. I also tend to skip sometimes the whole contribution guide. But then when I became like a maintainer, so I realized how important it is because when you send a PR, if you haven't read that, a lot of contributors mentioned, for example, you have to have these tools for, let's say, formatting, and then
Right.
you don't have
Mm.
that set up. You haven't read that, and then you suddenly see your PRs, the CDCI or continuous integration is failing because of formatting, and then you find okay, you're gonna come say, oh, why is formatting is failing? Oh, because you haven't read the contribution. There is a tiny tools that you need to install and your editor will take care of everything, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. It's very very common, to be honest. It's very very common that we receive PRs, or in the past I sent a PR and these type of things failed because I just didn't read. Or I remember like let's say for in Plus plugins we have a type of standard title for our PRs,
Mm.
and many of contributors, it's amazing that they're contributing, but they don't actually follow that. So if we say, okay, if you're sending a PR, please just mention which plugin is this. We have a bunch of plugins.
Right.
Imagine that you're contributing to Flutter repository right now, right? It's a giant
Exactly.
repository. You can't just send the PR and then expect that Flutter team immediately understand what it is. They are doing a lot other stuff on this code base. They're switching context time to time. They're moving from plugins to core to engine to a lot of other
Right.
things, and makes it hard for them to understand your PR. So if you follow the contribution, it's the first step. Be clear, concise, go ahead, and then send your PR. Make the life of maintainer easy, let's say. They will really appreciate that. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, in a way, this is kind of something that I would want to tell the viewers as well, that like in this case, a lot of the maintainers are actually spending a lot of time in making sure that you are completely aware of the entire
Sure.
project and what kind of a contribution that you can give. When you are not kind of following the contribution guide, you are not just wasting your own time by doing the wrong things in a way,
Exactly.
but also wasting their time by trying to review something that was just not to the contribution, or is not following the rules.
Exactly.
So a lot of us, we are kind of doing it by like in our free time. It's not paid in any
Exactly.
way or something. It's kind of very like just we wanted to contribute to the community in a way. So uh definitely read whatever is there for you to read, just so that you are actually utilizing the entire time and not doing something, and you don't have to redo something again just because you forgot to read it. So yeah,
Exactly.
definitely this is something for the viewers. So like when you're talking about like the issues that you can resolve, and you're just like looking at the code bases, do you think that for such really large code bases, do you have to really look at
Mhm.
everything in the code base before you start contributing to it, or you just want to just the portions that you think will be affected, that's the only that you want to look at?
This is actually a very good question. The reason is that from time to time, you're coming to repositories. Let's again have an example. Flutter, for example.
Mhm.
It's a very big repository, right? If
Right.
you want to understand the whole repository, it's going to take a year. So
Yeah.
it's a hard thing to do. So it's impossible to understand everything and then start contributing, right? What I usually do is I try to narrow my um, circle of understanding things to the point that I want to contribute about. For example, let's say
Mm.
I want to fix something in CLI, in Flutter CLI. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and understand where those libraries or classes and files is residing for CLI, and what are the tests around is where they are residing. And many times good repositories, for again as an example Flutter, there are a lot of corresponding files, like you will find a function for something and there is also similar names for testing somewhere in
Mm.
similar names that it says testing. So finding them is easy. We will also get to that, like how you can actually use or leverage your IDE to find them out. But for now, let's say even you are navigating via GitHub web UI, let's say, you can't find them very easily. Once you find them, then you need to, I personally try to focus on those areas. So this is a very massive repository, Flutter. We're saying an example. Another example is Plus plugins. We have um, around nine or eight, nine
Mm.
plugins, and each of them have has five different, sub, let's say, folder for each platform, and that makes
Right.
it around 40, let's say, or something,
Mm.
50 different folders, and it's very hard to go and understand everything. But what you can do is, let's say, oh, I want to contribute. I am an Android expert, and I know package info. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to this repository, find package info, find Android folder or Android
Mm.
implementation for that, and then try to fix what I want to fix. Run only Android. Try not to just run everything, because that's gonna
Right.
take again a lot of time, right?
Yeah.
Or let's say you are a web expert and you want to go and fix something in, let's say, web, or let's say share plus package. So okay, go to share, find the share, and find the web folder and try to find test as well as the implementation or the logic. There are sometimes that you will find an extra, or let's say a shared library for all of this. You may need to understand that, but you will figure out when you narrow down your circle, right? You go ahead and narrow down, and then oh, for implementation of the web, I need platform, let's say, interface. Oh,
Mm.
that's good. So then I need to understand platform interface. Go one step further and then find out what is platform interface here, and then try to get these things all working. And then you can start contributing. Definitely.
There's like a lot of following the trace of the code in a way,
Exactly.
like how is it like how is the logic traveling, or how the functions are being traveling to the UI files, or how you are like just a lot of tracing happening at this point.
Exactly.
Do you think that, do you kind of do any kind of visualizations
Mhm.
of the structure or the code or the hierarchy of widgets, or any kind of diagrams do you prefer to doing, just so that you have a better idea of the code structure in a way?
I personally don't. I know that some maintainers does, but I don't, because I'm pretty I have a good relationship with my IDE. So I try to find everything there. So
Nice.
I try to navigate the folders, the structure, and so these days,
Mhm.
even let's say VS Code, which technically is not a full-fledged IDE, right? But it helps a lot.
Right.
It's acting right now as an IDE. You can simply navigate through the structure from your IDE. Let's say VS Code, which has a lot of users, right? So then you go to a file, you find a class. These days, even VS Code helping you to step in for let's say a function or for a class, and a step out or even move forward. So you can simply
Mm.
go one step further from that file, from that function. You don't necessarily need like a diagram to realize, oh, is this connected to this or not? But I
Mm.
mean, in your IDE, you can simply say, oh, command click, and then boom, you go inside, and that's actually related to this function, you know? So
Mm.
what I do usually when it comes to contribution, I do contribute a lot, even on different repositories. What I do is I try to, as I said, first of all, I try to find out what I really want to do. And with my ID, I navigate through all of those function classes that I really want to work with. I try
Mm.
not to think about any other things. I try to encapsulate my knowledge here. I want to isolate
Nice.
myself into a box which is completely related to an issue that I want to fix. So, because also one tip that I can tell you is that when you come to these large code bases, you easily get distracted.
Right.
You will find some function. Oh, that is right. That is very nice. Who has written this? Oh, let's find out. Let's check out logs. Oh, what does that mean? This is very nice. Let's say way of writing a function or a class, or you get distracted, and then you realize an issue that can be fixed within like an hour, and you can send a PR. Because of the distraction, you may have spent a couple of hours, you still couldn't find it, you still couldn't fix it, and then you say, okay, let's give up. But if you
Yeah.
just try to reduce the distraction, don't look at other things. I know it's interesting, but first focus on your issue, your PR, get it done. Once it's done, then get back and understand the things that it was interesting to you. I usually flag them, by the way. I say, oh, in this file, in this, I have like a note in my ID, and say, I want to actually check this out. This is really interesting implementation, for example.
Yeah, even I think not just like good implementation, sometimes you might just find bugs that is not related to the issue that you're working with, and you
Exactly,
might get
exactly,
like, okay, let me try that out as well. So that can distraction can
exactly,
happen as well.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's a very good
So
point.
yeah, in a way, I think the suggestion is that be a little narrow-minded or like be a little focused with your particular bug or particular feature that you're building for the like a desired project that you're building for. And yeah, in a large code base, it is very easy to get distracted. But again, if you want to like utilize your time in completely 100%, I think what Majid is saying is that basically just try to like focus only on the methods that is relevant to your issue. So yeah,
Exactly.
that's a great tip. So like you are constantly mentioning about how your ID is helping you about navigate
Hmm.
the code base or how it's helping you picturize the structure, etc. Like is there like tips the choice of editor kind of matters here, and how does your choice of editor helped you? Like how does this help in like navigating the code base?
I don't recommend any specific editor, but what I say is that whatever editor you choose, you need to, like I said, you have to have a very good relationship with your editor. You need to find out inside out of the
Right.
editor. So it really doesn't matter what you choose. I usually use IntelliJ in some occasions, and many times, quite often VS Code.
Mm.
Both works for me very well. But I know that some people are just using IntelliJ. They don't want to use VS Code because they're much more familiar with that, or the other way around, right? Or some people are using even Vim, like completely text editors, right? It really doesn't matter as long as you really understand your editor, how it can help you to become productive. That's enough, because whatever you choose, you can easily navigate. You can easily find out the, functions, classes, and everything related to the issue that you want to fix or whatever you want to do. And that's the most important thing. So do not, I personally always mention that do not try to find the best tools. The best tools is the tools that makes you
More productive.
productive.
Yep,
It
absolutely.
really doesn't matter what you choose, but whatever you choose, learn it inside out. And that's the important things that you need to do. And that's actually what I do. So, I mean, also as a developer, Pooja, that if you come behind my computer and working with my VS Code, you probably just hit your head to the wall and say, the hell is this? I can't even work, because each keyboard shortcut and,
Ah,
settings is very, very, very specific to the person, to the developer is working, with that
absolutely.
editor. So, but again, that's not an advantage. Like your editor has a better setup than me. I don't think we can even say this statement, because that's your setting. It works for you. It might not work for me, because I'm more comfortable with this setting. So, but it's important to have a productive setting. Find out
Right.
shortcuts. Working with keyboard is very important, and try to find out how you can navigate easily with your keyboard. Because, always having your hand on the mouse, checking out, even back and forth between mouse and keyboard, it's just, try to add some extra few seconds. It might not sound like a lot, but look at the whole day as well as the whole year that you can save by learning the shortcuts instead, right? That's important.
Yeah, that's actually true about the settings in your own system is actually the one that you're most comfortable with. And when somebody
Exactly.
like probably gives me some other laptop to work with, I'm completely handicapped. I was like, I have no idea how to use it because it's not my
Exactly.
settings. Completely agree
Exactly.
with you.
That happens to me a lot. Yeah. I always like when I work on the other people computer. I say, "Oh, how can I copy? How can I just move? Cursor. Can you tell me?" It's like I'm like a baby that is working with a computer.
Yes.
I don't know what to do.
Yes, a completely dumb person who have no idea how to use the computer.
Exactly.
Yes, so definitely spend time on making sure that you know the in and out of your ID, whatever it is. The recommendation is that the ID that you're using is probably the best one for you. So, like we have learned a lot about how we're navigating the code base, how we're finding the right issues, and a lot about the contributions and a lot about the maintainers, what they are doing as well. We would love to have a little demo that where
Hmm.
you like completely new person to a project, completely new person to an open source project. How do you go around the code base? Just a small demo where people can just get a like a visualization of how you think at least. So
Sure.
yeah.
So as the maintainer of, or one of the maintainer of Plus plugins, so I'm gonna actually go through this at least repository, which I'm familiar the most. So let's say I want to act as a person who doesn't really know anything about this repository, right?
Yes.
Let's see what I
Yes.
will do. Uh, I will. The first thing that I will do is to try to understand if I want to contribute. I already know these packages. I know the README. I have read that. I use these packages.
Hmm.
This is something that I don't want to discuss right now. But what the first thing I will do is either in the README, some many times contributors usually or maintainers usually say how to contribute. You will find out something like contributing or contribution or things like that.
Right.
And they usually say go there and read about this contribution. Or it's very common that you find a file or MD file in the root of the project or somewhere in the project that it says contributing, for example, like
Hmm.
this. That's the first thing I usually do. I go ahead here and try to read from top to bottom, even though it's long, because
Hmm.
that is going to help me to understand how to set up. Usually, you find out how to set up your project. If not in contributing, you may find it in README, because the first thing that you need to understand is how I can set up this project. What are the tools that I need? For example, in Plus plugins, you will find out that actually you need two libraries that needs to be installed and activated via pubdet global.
Right.
And that is something that a lot of our contributors are missing. And then that's the reason of sending a PR, which doesn't have like a proper formatting. So try to find out. Also, most of the time you find out that how you can clone a project. So you are going to contribute. So the first thing that you need to do usually is you need to fork this project, right? We will do that quickly right now. But that is also something that you will find in the contributing file. It says, well, you're going to go ahead, clone, fork, and then you also find extra tips. For example, many times, if you start contributing, you fork your project, the project comes under your account in GitHub, right? And then you contribute, you forget about it, and then maybe a month later, you want to come back and contribute again, and your project, you already forked it. It's not up to date anymore, probably. It's also good to find out how you can make your local copy of the forked main repository, let's say, up to date to the upstream, to the main repository. Usually you will find these type of information either in contributing, or you can usually like even search on that. But I mean, this is something that you will find about it. As you see here in the contribution, we also mentioned about the environment, how you set that up, what is Melos. It's also one good thing about, I think you will agree with me, Pooja. One good thing about contribution is that you will learn a lot.
Exactly.
For example, you might come to this repository. You may have never ever heard about Melos, and then you suddenly heard Melos. What is Melos? What does it do?
Yes.
And then with just a simple search, you figure out, oh, this is actually a library that helps me to have a monorepo for packages.
Right.
That's fantastic, right? So you learn something new. And that is the part I really, really like about open source and contribution. And once you're done...
That's one thing I would really want to mention again is that I think a lot of us also have this question is that how do I find out what is the best practices that we need to use, or like how to write better code? In open source, if you find the most popular packages, they are like, following a very like good practices, and like they have really
Exactly.
good these things that you actually learn from these open projects. I have not learned while doing my own project or my company projects as well. It's just like it just depends on what kind of people you're working with. And yeah, I definitely would agree 100% that if you want to learn better, learn more things about how to write better code, definitely go into the most popular open source projects, whatever language it is.
Exactly. That's a very good point. And get back to the contributing document is that then you will follow and you will understand what are the requirements from the team. Like you will understand for this particular package, for example, or a repository, you'll see that, oh, you need to have unit tests, for example, for your contribution, or maybe sometimes you don't need that, but at least unit tests and other testers must, pass when you send the PR. You need to also... These are all the things. The point here is that everything that these maintainers or the maintenance of one package or one repository needs, they will usually point them out in these documentations. Okay, some documentations are smaller, like this one, for example, and some documentation, like Flutter documentation, are a lot. You need to go through a lot of things to successfully have your local environment set up. But that's usually one-time job, right? You usually do it once and then you're ready to contribute as much as you want. So you will find out about creating pull requests and, how we usually, review and the process and so on and so forth. All right.
Nice.
So, but now you read, you understand, you want to actually go ahead. At least you have like a big picture, what you want to do. Now you want to go and contribute. Okay, I want to contribute to this. I know which issue I want. Well, let's say I want to go ahead and fork it. That's very simple. You're gonna go fork it to your, let's say, organization. You will see always under your let's say organization or your user account, there is a forked version of Plus plugins here. So then
Yes.
for now this is the latest, but then many times you're gonna go and always up to date it with upstream. So okay, what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna go and actually clone this, whatever you want. I usually use SSH, like simply copy that, and let me bring up my terminal quickly. Though I'll open up my terminal usually, and I say, okay, git clone, and I'm gonna go and clone this repository, right? I already cloned this repository, so I have it. So maybe to just demonstrate that, I will go ahead and remove that. That's totally safe to do so. Once it's removed, then I can clone once more, and then here we go. I'm gonna go and clone it. So once that's done, and you already go, now this is a time, usually you go through the contribution and do the step-by-steps. Once you know the basic, you already set up what is needed, then you need to run those steps. I'm not gonna go through those because we don't have much time, but the point here is that you should follow those steps and make your local environment properly set up.
Absolutely.
So then I'm gonna go to the Plus plugins, for example. There you go. And let's say I already, let's actually open up my editor. From this point, when everything is cloned, I'm ready, I have my local, let's say, environment set up. Then from this point, I can even start reading from the editor. So I don't need to even go back to the repository, right? So I can come here and then I can follow everything step by step. So setting, okay, what I need to do, I need to have this clone. I already did. I have an ID. Then I need to install this and this. Okay, perfect. These are the things that I want to do. And then we're going to go and once you set up everything, usually everything will work. That's the use case. But what we want to do is then you go and find out about your niche issue for the particular package, or maybe one particular file or one particular setup or whatever you want to contribute to, right? Let's say I want to contribute for package info. So I don't care about anything here. Right? I'm going to go and care about this. And I say, I am a web, let's say, expert, and I actually want to contribute to web. So I'm going to open this. Again, navigating, make it easy. So I'm going to go open my library, open the implementation. Here we go. I have everything right now here. So, of course, I have not set up the properly. So that's why I'm getting these errors right now. So now, once I open this file, I know where I am. So let's close the navigator or explorer part. So then, okay, I know the implementation. At this point, this is the part that you need to navigate around and find out about dependencies, right? So if you want to change something, for example, to this, and that requires to change something to the parent of this class, which is extended from, you need to maybe click on this, go to that implementation, find where it is. Right. That's the way that you navigate. You find out all your dependencies. You find out about, this class, other packages that is here. You may go and find out about your dependencies even in pubspec.yaml file. From this point, it's very specific to the issue you're going to solve, right? You're going to fix. Many times, well, at least in Flutter application, you'll find a lib folder and a test folder where the tests are also residing inside the folder. So you can go and find it and maybe fix the test. I also recommend you to try to write tests for your fixes. If it's a feature, definitely write a test. If it's a bug and it's requiring to change a test, definitely you need to find out and change that, right? Because a lot of packages, they have a CDCI on their repository. Right. So when you forget about this stuff, so when you send your PR, then, the CDCI will fail and you need to come back and again fix it. So it's better to always be proactive when it comes to contribution.
Right.
Let's say now I left very simple things. I just want to demonstrate it. I just added a new line of comment here. Usually that is coming to my status in Git, right? So I see what I have changed. Okay, I changed something here. I can see even the diff, or if you're familiar with the visual part of it, so you can come here and check it out. One tip here quickly. I think also maybe you have seen that, Pooja, that many of us are trying to fix something. And then when you check out the diff of the Git, you see that something else also has changed. Maybe it's a formatting. Maybe you've mistakenly add something. So it's very good before you conclude your PR. You just have a look at, the file, the diff version, and check out if it's actually really what you've done. So it's not mistakenly like a space or a mistake formatting or maybe a misspelling or things like that. So it's good to have a look at that. And okay, for now I know, for example, I changed this. There is no other changes. That's perfect. That's what I wanted, right? So then I'm going to go, and one thing from here, or you can do from the very beginning, is you need to create a branch. Right. So that's a requirement. So what we can do, you can change your stuff, but before you commit, please remember that you need to create a branch. So then I'm going to go and create a branch, let's say a testing change, let's say. And once you do that, then now I always misspell here. Now, if you look at this here, you see that I am in testing branch. Good to go. I have something in my status. Very good. So I can actually now go ahead and commit and say, I changed something. Right? So for now, you are changing or committing everything locally. You need to go ahead and actually push that to the remote branch. That goes to the local fork that is created under your account. So you're going to go ahead and push. Let's see what is happening right now. I'm going to get an error. The error is that's very often if you're familiar with Git. So you actually need to push it to origin, for example, and the same change. I will do that. Okay, done. Changes is done. Testing is passing. Everything is passing. So you're good to go. I'm going to go and open again my forked version. So I have actually a tools, or maybe you can come back to here. The good thing is that GitHub will automatically recognize that you created or some changes here. That is fantastic. So then you don't need to do some extra work here. There are some buttons that you can do. One more tip I'll quickly give you here is that many times in the fork branch, this is a new feature from GitHub that you can, instead of updating your mainstream, from the mainstream or upstream, let's say repository, you can actually do it here.
Yes, yeah.
There is a button. There is already a button here that you can compare or maybe update your main branch, which is actually added from the upstream from the main repository. So you can quickly do that as well. If you are not very good with command line stuff and things like that, there is also a UI tools for that. Okay, all right. Let's say I'm up to date and I'm gonna go and send a PR. But before that, let me tell you one more tip, because that's also very often you send a PR and because some activity on the package or on the repository, your branch will become outdated, right? So you will be behind the repository commits. So maintainers usually ask you, can you merge or update your branch? The reason that I mentioned about fetching upstream is this, because you can come back here, fetch, update your main, go to your branch, let's say here, and just simply say git merge with main, and you're
Yes.
good to go.
Yeah,
And
people
you
do
can
have
just update your
problems
branch.
with that in a way that, every day that the PR is setting with the maintainer, there is new changes happening on the project all the time,
Absolutely.
and you have to keep on updating and updating.
Exactly. So let's actually send this PR, see how it goes. So I'm going to go to compare and pull request right now. You'll figure out that it goes to the main
Right.
repository immediately. So it says, okay, what is the base repository? That's the main one. What is the head that I actually made some changes, testing, main,
Mm.
everything looks good. I'll go and write something based on the contribution guide in the title. And there are usually also a template for you to fill when it comes to the PR. So it actually asks you a few questions. Oh, what is this
Mm.
PR for? Is there any related issues or not? And there is also many times you see a checklist. That's in many repositories you see that there is a
Right.
checklist because they want to remind you. Have you read that? Did you check
Mm.
your like testing? Is it passing? Is it the formatting? Everything is fine, and then you just go ahead and check them if it's valid for you. And you also need to mention, well, for this template that we have particularly, is it a breaking change or something else? And once you are confident, you fill this information. And again, a tip here, please do that because otherwise the maintainers will come to you and say, okay, what is this? Can you explain more? And that actually creates some extra work for you later.
Yes,
Or maybe
absolutely.
a reason that probably they don't want to merge your PRs because they don't understand, because you haven't read or checked those. And many repositories are actually checking these checks, let's say, automatically. If you don't really check these, then maybe somewhere in CDCI it's
Mm.
failing automatically because you haven't checked that. So just don't pass it, and also don't feel this without you really read that. So
This is
I
not your
personally
usual
did
terms and
that.
conditions.
Exactly. It is not usual terms and condition, as Pooja said. Please read it and make sure when you say, yeah, check, it actually
Mm.
passed. Because it's very embarrassing. I did that myself
Okay.
a couple of years ago. I actually haven't read. I didn't know, like, oh, maybe the repository is checking these checks. And I just checked. And then immediately, like after 2 minutes, the CD, there was a bot. It just sent me an embarrassing message and said, oh, you checked this, but there is also a failing test. Have you really checked that? So, oh, okay. No, actually, I didn't. I just checked. So please read that. That's very important. And once everything is ready, create pull request, be patient, and give some time to
Mm.
maintainers. They might be busy. As Pooja said,
Absolutely.
most of us are doing these open source stuff for free in our spare time. So please be patient. I've seen some PRs that someone sends a PR and then an hour later it comes and says, okay, the CDCI is passing. When are you going to check this PR or review this PR? I said, okay, please wait. Just give me some time. I'll
They are
definitely do
humans
that,
as
but just give
well.
me some time. Exactly. So be patient.
Right,
And
absolutely.
for you in Hacktober or October for Hacktoberfest, feast, let's say, it's a good chance that if your PR gets merged, then you go ahead and get a point in Hacktoberfest and
Yes.
you get some swags as well, which is
Yes.
also in our repository. This month, we will give an extra swag,
Yes,
Flutter
I
swag,
know.
to all contributors, as well as a dash for the
Yes.
best contributors for sure. I
Yes,
mean the
absolutely.
most active ones.
I hope that excites people who are like, wanting to like contribute. But yes,
It
I
did
have,
actually, Pooja.
yeah, okay, yeah.
You know how many contribution we had? We had until now, it's around, I don't know, sometime in middle of October, we had around 60 PR
Wow.
merged.
Wow.
That's impressive.
And
Thank you
60
everyone
pairs
for
merged,
contributing to the
by the
package.
way.
Yes, merged.
Nice. That is amazing. So, thank you so much, Majid. That was like a very thorough explanation of how to actually, contribute to a open source project like we're talking about the Flutter Plus plugins. And a lot of my viewers are like from the Flutter community, so they will be really
Sure.
interested to know how to contribute to the that particular project. And I really think that after this they are definitely going to be even more contributors to that project, as we learned that
Sure.
there are already 60 merged PRs. So other than that, whatever we have discussed, is there any other final tips that you would want to give to these newbies open source developers?
Yes. Um, I think the only thing that I want to mention here is that usually getting started is the hardest part, right?
Right.
So sending the first PR is the most scariest one, and so probably the one that usually it just stops you for sending other PRs, right? So what I recommend is that many maintainers or many repositories are looking for just maybe helping in to improve documentation as something that is very easy to contribute, right? Or very small fixes that you are master on that particular skill and you can send these PRs. What I recommend is that instead of thinking quite big, oh, I want to actually add a feature to Flutter for this, because that's actually a big job. Instead, think, how can I fix these typos in the documentation in Flutter? Oh, I found a couple of them. Go ahead, set up, send a PR. You will learn. And the first PR is usually it's like the best one because it will kind of remove your
Fear.
scariness of
Yeah.
sending, PRs and things like that. Once you
Right.
get comfortable with sending the first one, then the second one, third, and the rest will come eventually, and you don't even think about it. When you find something, immediately you fork, do that, whatever we just explained, and you will do it like automatically without even thinking. It just naturally comes to you as a contributor. Oh, I have to fix this
Absolutely.
anyway.
That's with anything in life, I guess. Like basically, the first one is
That's
going to be
true.
definitely hard. Like the first contribution, like even the first code that you write is definitely going to be very hard. But I think it gets easier. And of course,
Absolutely.
another thing that you also mentioned, that like even documentation changes are like good contribution. So any
Absolutely.
contribution is a good contribution as long as it's actually helping the maintainers and the project. So definitely agree with that.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much, Majid, like for sharing all this knowledge with us. I'm pretty sure it's going to help the new open source developers who are really interested and really excited to contribute, not just in October, probably through after this. They're probably going to contribute
Sure.
much, much longer till the end of the year, till next year. I hope some of them become seasoned developers, seasoned open source developers, and I really hope that this knowledge that we share today is like a little seed in their journey. So thank you so much.
I hope so too. Thank you for
Yes,
inviting me, Pooja. This was great, and I hope that everyone will enjoy this, talk
we really hope.
conversation. And also, I want to mention that let's say everyone who has any question afterwards, they can actually reach out to us. I know that you're very active in the community, and also me. So we are always happy to help and get you started with your fears about contribution. Let's say at least, or other things as well, if you need any help.
Absolutely. I will definitely put your all your social media links in the description so that
Thank
they
you.
can reach you easily. And of course, they know where to reach me. So I'm really excited to see how this video affects people who are like, really, really wanting to contribute. So let's see. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So that was Majid answering all your common questions about open source contribution. And now that you are more knowledgeable, you can check this next video where it will tell you how the Hacktoberfest rules and how to contribute to the Flutter communities plus plugins. But at the time of watching this video, if today is not a day in October 2021, it does not mean that you should not contribute because it will not get you any swags. You should definitely take this as an opportunity to jump into the open source train and kickstart your open source journey. This was an information packed video. So if you like this video, please do comment down below what you like about it, and do share it with your peers and classmates who are interested to know about open source contributions. Also like this video because that makes me very happy. And do subscribe to my channel if you like such unique content on your feed. That definitely motivates me to make more such videos. So thank you so much and see you in the next one.